Alex Carter grabbed his wedding ring off the nightstand and slammed it through the penthouse window. Glass exploded into the night, 47 floors above Manhattan's shards, raining down like frozen tears. He stood there bleeding from the knuckles, breathing hard, staring at the hole he'd just punched in his own life. Billionaire, widower, done. Then his phone lit up. A text from a number he didn't recognize, a single photo. A woman on a cracked kitchen floor laughing, holding a disabled boy so tight it looked like prayer. 3 words underneath, "Be honest. Is it beautiful?" That one photo from the neighbor he'd never met would cost Alex everything. His empire, his reputation, his control. And it would be the only thing that saved him. But someone was already watching. Comment your city so I can see how far this story has traveled, and if you want all 5 parts, subscribe now and stay with me to the end. Alex Carter hadn't slept in 4 days. He sat on the edge of his bed, still wearing Wednesday's suit, his tie hanging loose, his knuckles wrapped in a dish rag soaked through with blood. The window behind him gaped open, a jagged hole, where the glass used to be, cold air pouring in, like the city was trying to swallow him whole. His phone sat on the nightstand. Screen down. He'd flipped it over 3 hours ago, when his daughter Maddie called for the second time. He didn't pick up. Couldn't. Because every time he heard her voice, he heard Sarah's, and Sarah was 18 months in the ground, and that was a door he had kicked shut and nailed boards across. The ring was gone. Somewhere 47 floors below, on a Manhattan sidewalk, a gold band worth $12,000 was sitting in the gutter next to a hot dog wrapper. He didn't care. He stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured 3 fingers of Macallan, and drank it in one pull. That's when his phone buzzed. Not from the nightstand, from his jacket pocket, his work phone, the one only 6 people on Earth had the number to. Unknown number. A photo. A message. "Hi, I'm so sorry, I think I sent this to the wrong number. But be honest, is it beautiful?" His thumb hovered over delete. One tap and it was gone. Back to the scotch. Back to the dark. Back to the nothing he'd built his life around since the funeral. But he opened it. A woman on a kitchen floor. Not his kind of kitchen, small cramped dishes stacked in the sink. She was wearing a faded college sweatshirt, hair pulled back, no makeup. On her lap, a boy. 7, maybe 8. His legs were thin, bent at angles that didn't lie, cerebral palsy or something close. Something that had taken his body, but missed his soul completely. Because that kid was laughing. Head thrown back, mouth wide open, every ounce of joy a human being could hold pouring out of him. And the woman she was laughing to, her forehead pressed to his, holding him like he was the last good thing on earth. Alex stared at that photo until his scotch went warm in his hand. Then he typed back. "Yeah, it is." 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. "Oh God, I'm so embarrassed. I was trying to send that to my sister. I just moved in across the hall, 14B. I'm Leah. I'm really sorry." He read it twice. Across the hall. He remembered the moving truck 2 weeks ago. The footsteps. The sound of wheels. A wheelchair he now understood. He'd never looked. Never cared. "Don't be sorry," he typed. "That's the most honest thing I've seen in a long time." He put the phone down, finished the scotch, and for the first time in 4 days closed his eyes. He didn't expect to see her. But the next morning, as he stepped out of 14A, suit pressed, face shaved, bleeding knuckles hidden under a bandage, the door to 14B swung open. She was smaller than the photo, thinner, dark circles under her eyes that could have been sisters to his own. She was pushing a wheelchair manual, not electric, and fighting the doorframe like it owed her money. "Come on, baby, we're gonna make it," she muttered to the boy, angling the chair. "If you tilt the left wheel up, it'll clear," Alex said. She looked up, startled. Then her eyes narrowed. "You're him, the wrong number guy." "That's what it says on my business card." She laughed short, sharp, like it escaped before she could catch it. The boy looked up at Alex with enormous brown eyes. "This is Marcus," Leah said. "Hey, Marcus." Marcus didn't speak. But he lifted his hand slowly, deliberately, with the kind of effort that most people never have to think about, and waved. Alex felt something shift behind his ribs. Not break. Shift. Like a wall that had been standing too long and finally leaned. "I really am sorry about last night," Leah said, pushing through the doorway. "I don't text strangers photos of my kid at midnight. I'm not that person. And I don't answer texts from strangers at midnight, so we're even." She glanced back at him. "Bad night. Bad 18 months. She nodded, not the cocktail party nod, not the polite hollow kind, the real kind. The kind that said, "I know exactly what that tastes like." They waited for the elevator together. Alex pressed the button. Leah adjusted Marcus's jacket, tucking it tighter around his chest. "Where are you two headed?" Alex asked. "PT at 8. Then I've got a shift at the gallery on 23rd. Then his afternoon session. Then homework. Then dinner. Then bath. Then—" She caught herself. "You didn't ask for my life story." "Actually, I did." She studied him. Longer this time, like she was trying to decide if he was real. "You're not what I expected," she said. "What did you expect? Honestly. Someone who'd ignore a wrong number text and go back to whatever billionaires do at midnight." "I almost did." The elevator doors opened. She pushed Marcus in first. Alex followed. "Well," she said quietly, looking straight ahead, "I'm glad you didn't." The doors closed. They rode down in silence. When the lobby opened, she pushed Marcus toward the front door, struggling with the chair over the threshold. Alex watched her bend down, kiss Marcus on the head, whisper something that made the boy smile. Then she was gone out into the cold, fighting the sidewalk, the way she probably fought everything alone, underfunded, and refusing to quit. He stood there for a full minute. Then he looked at his watch. He was already 20 minutes late. Richard Hale was pacing when Alex walked in. Richard was 53, divorced twice, married to the job 3 times over. Chief Operating Officer of Carter Enterprises for 15 years. The only man in the building allowed to tell Alex Carter the truth, and the only man who actually did. 22 minutes, Richard said, tapping his watch. "The Koreans left. They'll come back. They always come back." "Not this time, Alex." Park was insulted. His translator used the word disrespected twice. Alex sat down at the head of the conference table and opened his laptop, then closed it. "What is going on with you?" Richard said, pulling a chair close. "Nothing. Nothing doesn't make you 22 minutes late to a $200 million meeting. Nothing doesn't make you miss 3 calls from legal yesterday. Nothing doesn't—" He stopped, leaned closer. "What happened to your hand?" Alex glanced at the bandage. "Cut myself." "On what?" "A window." "How do you cut yourself on a—" Richard stopped again. His face changed. "Alex, tell me you didn't." "I threw my ring through it." Richard sat back, exhaled hard, ran both hands through his hair. "Jesus Christ. It was just glass, Rich." "It's never just glass. Not with you. Not since Sarah." He leaned forward. "You need to talk to someone. A professional. I've been saying this for—" "I don't need a therapist. I need everyone to stop asking me if I need a therapist." "Then what do you need?" Alex looked at him. The question sat between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. What did he need? He'd been asking himself that for 18 months, and the only answer that ever came back was her. Sarah reading in bed, laughing at his jokes, telling him his suits made him look like a mannequin. Sarah who was gone and wasn't coming back. But this morning, for the first time, a different answer had flickered. A kitchen floor. A boy's laugh. A woman who looked at him like he was a person, not a portfolio. "I don't know yet," Alex said. Richard stared at him. "That might be the most honest thing you've said in a year." "Lot of honesty going around lately." "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Run the numbers on the Korean deal. I'll call Park myself this afternoon. Richard stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the door. Then he stopped. Alex. Yeah. Whatever's happening, don't let it touch the company. The board is already nervous. Henderson's been making calls. Quiet ones. Henderson can make all the calls he wants. He's got 3 votes, Alex. Maybe 4. If he gets a 5th. He won't. Richard didn't look convinced. He left without another word. Alex sat alone in the conference room. 48th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows all intact, unlike the one at home. The skyline stretched out in front of him, steel and glass, and money, the whole machinery of his life, humming along without him. He picked up his phone and called Maddie. She answered on the first ring. Dad? Hey, sweetheart. Are you okay? You didn't pick up last night. I called twice. I know. I'm sorry. You're always sorry. That landed hard. I was thinking, he said carefully. This weekend, I could come to Boston. We could have dinner. That Italian place you like on Hanover Street. Silence. He could hear her breathing, could hear her deciding whether to believe him. You said that 3 weeks ago, she said. I know. And 2 months before that. I know Maddie. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, Mom's been gone a year and a half, and I lost both my parents. He closed his eyes, his jaw locked. He could stare down a hostile board without blinking, but his daughter's voice, not angry, not shouting, just tired, put him flat on his back. I'm trying, he said. Try harder, Dad, because I can't keep waiting for you to come back to life. She hung up. Alex sat there. The city moved outside the glass. He didn't see it. He came home at 7. Earlier than usual. The hallway was quiet until he reached his door and heard it, a metallic scraping sound from across the hall. Leah was on her knees in front of 14B, working on Marcus's wheelchair with a butter knife. That's not going to work, he said. She didn't look up. The repair shop wants $300. I've got 47 in checking and a credit card that laughs at me. So the butter knife and I are figuring it out. Can I look at it? She stopped. He saw it, the hesitation, the pride, the years of doing everything alone, hardening into a wall that didn't let anyone through. I'm not going to break it, he said. You're wearing a suit that costs more than my rent. Then I'll bill you for the dry cleaning. She almost smiled. Almost. Fine. He set his briefcase down and knelt beside her, close enough to smell her shampoo, something simple drugstore, nothing like the bottles Sarah used to line up on the bathroom shelf. He turned the wheel, examined the axle. It's bent, he said. You need a new one, but I can straighten this enough to hold for a while. You know how to fix wheelchairs. I know how to fix things. Machines deals broken axles. It's people I can't figure out. She sat back on her heels. That might be the saddest thing anyone's ever said to me while holding a butter knife. He went to his apartment, found the toolbox Sarah used to keep under the sink. She was the one who hung the pictures, assembled. The bookshelves teased him for being a billionaire who couldn't change a light bulb and brought it back. 15 minutes. The axle wasn't perfect, but the wheel spun clean. Thank you, Leah said, and the way she said it, quiet, almost bewildered, told him that people didn't do this for her. People didn't kneel on hallway floors and fix things. People left. People packed bags and said, I'm not built for this, and disappeared. Can I ask you something? Alex said, sitting back against the wall. Depends. The photo last night. You asked if it was beautiful. Why did that matter? Leah sat against the opposite wall. The hallway was narrow enough that their feet nearly touched. She was quiet for a long time. Because nobody sees it, she said. They see Marcus in his chair, and they see something sad, something to feel sorry for. They look at us with pity, or they look away, and honestly, I don't know which one is worse. But that laugh, that moment, that's the most beautiful thing in my life. And sometimes, I just need one person to see it. Just one." Alex nodded slowly. He understood that. The desperate need for anyone to see the thing that keeps you breathing. "My wife died 18 months ago," he said. He hadn't planned to say it. It came out the way truth does when you've been choking on it too long. Leah didn't say "I'm sorry." She didn't say she's in a better place or time heals everything or any of the other hollow, well-meaning phrases that grief collects like junk mail. She just looked at him. "What was her name, huh?" "Sarah." "Tell me something about her. Not how she died. Something about how she lived." No one had ever asked him that. Not once. In 18 months of condolences and check-ins and awkward silences, not a single person had asked him to remember his wife as anything other than someone who was gone. "She hated my suits," Alex said. "Every single one. She said I looked like a corporate mannequin. She wanted me to wear flannel and jeans. She used to hide my ties before board meetings. I'd be tearing through the closet at 6 in the morning, and she'd be in bed pretending to sleep, trying not to laugh." Leah smiled. "She sounds like she was a handful." "She was everything." "I know what that feels like. Having your everything be the thing the world doesn't understand." They talked for 2 hours. Sitting on a hallway floor in a Manhattan high-rise, him in his ruined suit, her in her faded sweatshirt, the city roaring 47 floors below like it had somewhere to be. She told him about Marcus's father, a man named Derek, who held his son exactly once in the delivery room before the doctor started talking about complications and prognoses and lifelong care, and then started pulling away. 6 months later, he left a note on the kitchen table. 4 sentences. No forwarding address. "What did it say?" Alex asked. "It said he loved us, that he wasn't strong enough, that he hoped I'd understand someday." She paused. The 4th sentence was asking me to cancel his gym membership. "You're kidding." "I wish I were." Alex shook his head. What kind of man leaves his son? The kind who was never really there to begin with. Derek loved the idea of a family. He just didn't love the reality of it. And Marcus. Marcus doesn't remember him. He was too young. Which is a mercy, I guess. You can't miss what you never had. She pulled her knees up. Or maybe that's a lie I tell myself so I don't burn the whole world down. He told her about Sarah. Not the sanitized version he gave to colleagues. She fought hard, she was brave, we're at peace with it. The real version. The 8 months of treatment. The hope that turned into desperation, that turned into bargaining, that turned into a hospital room at 3 in the morning, where he held her hand and begged God to take him instead. "Did you mean it?" Leah asked. "When you begged?" "Every word." "And now?" He looked at her. "Now I just throw rings through windows." That's not an answer. "I know." She held his gaze. "Alex, I need you to answer." "I don't want to die," he said slowly. "I just forgot how to want to live. There's a difference." "Yeah, there is. And the fact that you know there's a difference means you're closer to the living side than you think." He exhaled. Something inside his chest unlocked, not all the way, not even close, but enough that he could feel air move through a space that had been sealed shut. "My daughter thinks I'm gone," he said. "That she lost both parents." "Did she?" "Maybe. I've been showing up to my own life like it's a meeting I didn't schedule, going through the motions, saying the right things, hitting the numbers, and then coming home to—" He gestured at his door. "That. A dark apartment and a bottle of scotch. You know about the scotch. I can smell it through the wall." He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in so long that the sound surprised him, like hearing a language he'd forgotten he spoke. "You should call your daughter," Leah said. "I did, this morning. She told me to try harder." "Smart girl. She gets that from her mother." Leah stood up, brushed off her jeans, and looked down at him. "I should check on Marcus. He fights sleep like it's his enemy." "Sounds like someone I know." Good night, Alex. Good night, Leah. She opened her door, paused, and looked back. For what it's worth, you're not as broken as you think you are. Broken people don't sit on hallway floors and fix things for strangers. She went inside. The door closed. Alex sat there for another minute. Then he walked into 14A. The cold air hit him through the shattered window. Glass still on the floor. Scotch still on the counter. He picked up his phone. To Maddie. I'm coming this weekend. Saturday. The Italian place on Hanover. I promise and I mean it this time. To Leah. For what it's worth, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And not just the photo. He put the phone down, picked up the scotch bottle, carried it to the kitchen sink, and poured the rest of it down the drain. The amber liquid disappeared into the dark. He stood there, hands on the counter, head bowed, and breathed. 3 blocks south, in an office on the 48th floor of Carter Tower, Richard Hale sat behind his desk. His computer screen glowed blue in the empty room. On it, a security camera feed from the 14th floor hallway. Time-stamped. Clear. Alex Carter on his knees, shoulder to shoulder with a woman, smiling, looking at her the way a man looks at someone who just pulled him out of deep water. Richard picked up his phone and dialed. It's me, he said. We might have a situation. On the other end, a voice. Define situation. Richard leaned back in his chair. I think Alex is waking up. And if he wakes up all the way, he's going to start asking questions about things we need him to stay asleep for. Silence on the line. Then, who's the woman? Neighbor. Nobody. Single mother, disabled kid. She's nothing. Nobody is nothing, Richard. You know that. Find out everything. Richard hung up. He looked at the screen one more time. Alex smiling. Leah laughing, the wheelchair between them like a bridge, and something cold moved behind his eyes. He closed the feed. The building hummed around him, 48 floors of glass and steel and secrets, and not a single soul awake to hear what was coming. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. Richard Hale had the file on his desk by 9 the next morning. Leah Marie Johnson, 34. Born in Trenton, New Jersey. Single mother. One son, Marcus, age 8. Cerebral palsy, nonverbal. No family support to speak of. Father dead. Mother estranged. One sister in Ohio who sent birthday cards, but never money. She worked 3 jobs. Mornings at a physical therapy clinic helping other people's children while her own waited. Afternoons at a small gallery on West 23rd that sold art nobody bought. Weekends cleaning apartments in buildings she could never afford to live in except for 14B, which she'd gotten through a housing assistance program that was funded ironically by a Carter Enterprises tax write-off from 6 years ago. Richard read the file twice, then he picked up the phone. She's clean, he told the voice on the other end. No criminal record, no lawsuits. No connections to anyone who matters. Everyone's connected to someone who matters, Richard. You're just not looking hard enough. I'm telling you, she's a single mother barely keeping the lights on. She's not a threat. She's already a threat. She made Alex smile. When's the last time you saw that man smile? Richard didn't answer, because the answer was Sarah's funeral. And that wasn't a smile, it was a mask. Keep watching, the voice said. And get Henderson on the phone. Tell him it's time to start pushing. The line went dead. Richard sat in his chair and stared at the file. A photo of Leah was clipped to the front page, pulled from her social media, which was almost non-existent. Just a handful of posts. Marcus at the park. Marcus at therapy. A sketch she'd drawn of the city skyline, rough but alive with energy. He closed the file and locked it in his drawer. Whatever Alex was doing, Richard told himself it was a phase. Grief made people reach for strange lifelines. It would pass. But even as he thought it, he didn't believe it. 2 floors below, Alex was doing something he hadn't done in 18 months. He was canceling meetings. Clear my afternoon. he told his assistant Janet without looking up from his phone. Janet, who had worked for him for 11 years and had seen him negotiate through a kidney stone without rescheduling a single call, stared at him. Your afternoon. You have the infrastructure committee at 2, legal review at 3:30, and Senator Mitchell's office confirmed the dinner at... Cancel all of it. Alex, Senator Mitchell has been trying to get this dinner for Janet. He looked up. Please. She blinked. In 11 years he had never said please. Not once. He gave instructions. He didn't request. Are you all right? She asked. I'm going to Boston. Boston today. My daughter's there. I told her I'd come this weekend, but I don't want to wait until the weekend. Janet's face did something complicated. Surprise, then confusion, then something softer. She'd known Sarah. She'd watched Alex hollow out after the funeral. She'd learned to work around the grief the way you learn to walk around a hole in the floor. I'll clear it, she said quietly. Go see your girl. He grabbed his coat and walked out. In the elevator, he pulled out his phone and texted Maddie. Change of plans. I'm coming today. Don't argue. Her response came fast. Today, it's Wednesday. I know what day it is. Are you dying? No. I just miss you. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 times before her answer came. Giacomo's, 6 p.m. Don't be late. He almost typed I won't, but that was a promise he'd broken too many times. Instead, he typed, I'm already on my way. He took a car to LaGuardia, caught the shuttle to Logan, and was sitting in a corner booth at Giacomo's on Hanover Street by 5:45, 15 minutes early. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been early for anything that wasn't a deal. Maddie walked in at 6 on the dot. She had Sarah's eyes dark brown sharp, the kind that could see through walls and excuses with equal ease. She was wearing a coat too thin for the weather and boots that had seen better years. The nonprofit didn't pay much, and she refused his money on principle. She stood at the edge of the table and looked at him like she was verifying he was real. You actually came, she said. I actually came. On a Wednesday. On a Wednesday. She slid into the booth. Didn't take her coat off. Didn't pick up the menu. Just sat there, arms crossed, studying him the way a woman studies a man who has let her down so many times that hope itself has become an act of courage. You look different, she said. Different how? I don't know. Less dead. He flinched. She didn't apologize for it. Maddie. Don't start with the apology. I've heard the apology. I can recite it in my sleep. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I know I haven't been there. I'm going to do better. She leaned forward. I don't want the speech, Dad. I want you to tell me what changed. Because something changed. You don't cancel meetings. You don't fly to Boston on a Wednesday. Something happened. Alex looked at his daughter. 24 years old. Stubborn as her mother. Twice as perceptive. I met someone, he said. Maddie's face went still. Completely, dangerously still. Met someone, she repeated. Not like that. My neighbor. She moved in across the hall. She accidentally texted me a photo of her son and we started talking. Talking? Maddie, stop repeating what I say and let me finish. I'm processing. You haven't voluntarily spoken to a human being outside a boardroom in 18 months, and now you're telling me a neighbor's text message made you fly to Boston. It wasn't the text message. It was... He stopped. Tried to find the words. She asked me something about Sarah. She asked me to tell her something about how Mom lived. Not how she died. How she lived. And I realized no one's asked me that. Not once. Maddie's arms loosened. Not all the way. But the wall dropped an inch. What did you tell her? Maddie asked. I told her about the ties. How Mom used to hide them before board meetings. Maddie's mouth twitched. She hid them in the oven once. I know. I turned the oven on for dinner and set 3 Hermes ties on fire. Mom laughed so hard she couldn't breathe. She laughed about that for a week. They were both quiet. The restaurant moved around them. Plates, clinking voices, layered over each other. The warm chaos of a place that had been feeding families for 40 years. But in the booth, it was just the two of them, and the ghost of a woman who had tied them together. "Is she pretty?" Maddie asked. Maddie. "I'm asking, is she pretty?" "She has a son, 8 years old. He's in a wheelchair. She works 3 jobs and barely sleeps. She lives across the hall from me, and she's got more fight in her than anyone I've ever met." "That's not an answer." "Yeah, she's pretty." Maddie picked up the menu, studied it like it was a legal document, then put it down. "If you hurt her," she said, "I'll never forgive you. I just met her. I don't care. If someone made you get on a plane on a Wednesday, she matters. And if she matters, you don't get to do what you did to me. You don't get to show up and then disappear." Alex reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. She didn't pull away. "I'm not disappearing," he said. "Prove it." "I will." They ordered. They ate. They talked about Sarah, really talked, not the careful edited version they'd been exchanging like diplomats for the past year and a half. Maddie told him things he didn't know. That Sarah had called her every morning at 7 during the chemo, not to talk about cancer, but to plan what they'd do when she got better. That Sarah had made Maddie promise to take care of him. That Maddie had been trying to keep that promise and kept hitting a locked door. "I locked it," Alex said. "I know you did. I was afraid that if I opened it, everything would come out, and I wouldn't be able to put it back." "Dad." Maddie squeezed his hand. "That's the whole point." He flew back to New York that night, landed at 10, took a car home, walked into the lobby of his building, and rode the elevator to 14. The hallway was quiet, but there was a note taped to his door. A piece of paper torn from a sketchbook with a pencil drawing of a wrench and a butter knife crossed like a coat of arms. Underneath, in small handwriting, "The wheel is still holding. You might have a second career. L." He peeled it off the door, carried it inside, and put it on the kitchen counter where the scotch bottle used to be. The next morning, he knocked on 14B. Leah opened the door with Marcus on her hip, or rather balanced against her hip, his legs hanging limp, his arms around her neck. "Alex, hi, is everything... Do you drink coffee?" "Do I drink coffee? I'm a single mother who works 3 jobs. Coffee is a food group. There's a place on the corner, Giuliani's. They make a cappuccino that my wife used to say was worth getting out of bed for." Leah looked at him, then at Marcus, then back at him. "Are you asking me to get coffee?" "I'm asking both of you to get coffee." Marcus lifted his hand and waved. The same slow, deliberate wave from the hallway. "I think that's a yes," Leah said. They went to Giuliani's, a tiny place with 6 tables and an espresso machine older than everyone in the room. Alex ordered 3 cappuccinos, one for himself, one for Leah, and one for Marcus, who couldn't hold the cup, but could drink through a straw that Leah pulled from her bag, like a magician pulling a rabbit. "You carry straws?" Alex asked. "I carry everything. Straws, wipes, medication, snacks. A change of clothes, his therapy schedule, emergency contacts. My bag weighs 14 pounds. I weighed it once. That's more than my briefcase. Your briefcase has contracts. Mine has survival." He watched her with Marcus, the way she held the straw steady, wiped his chin, without interrupting his drinking, adjusted his posture in the wheelchair, so casually it was clear she'd done it 10,000 times. Every movement was practiced efficient, and full of love so fierce it was almost violent. "You're staring," she said. "Sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking you're the strongest person I've ever met." She set the straw down. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Put me on a pedestal. Strong is what people call you when they don't want to say exhausted. I'm not strong, Alex. I'm just still standing." "There's a difference. Huge difference. Strong means you have a choice. Still standing means the alternative is falling, and you've got a kid who needs you so you don't fall." Alex leaned back in his chair. "Okay. Then you're the most still-standing person I've ever met." She laughed. A real one. The kind that starts in the belly and lights up the whole face. Marcus looked up at the sound and grinned wide, pure the same grin from the photo. "He loves that sound," Alex said. "What sound?" "Your laugh. Look at him." Leah looked at Marcus. The boy was beaming at her, his hand reaching toward her face. She took it, pressed his palm against her cheek, and held it there. "Yeah," she whispered. "He does." They started meeting every morning. 6:45 at Giuliani's before Leah's day swallowed her whole and Alex's swallowed him. 30 minutes. Coffee conversation, and Marcus, who began to recognize Alex lifting his hand to wave the moment the door opened, making a sound that Leah said was the closest thing he had to saying a name. "He's trying to say Alex," she told him on the 4th morning. "How do you know?" "Because he only makes that sound when you walk in." Alex felt something dangerous, something warm and terrifying and completely beyond his control. He was falling. Not the way you fall for someone in the movies all at once, dramatic music swelling. The way you fall in real life. Slowly, day by day, cup by cup, wave by wave. On the 6th morning, Leah was late. 10 minutes, 20. Alex sat with his cappuccino going cold, watching the door. She came in at 7:15 without Marcus. "Where is he?" Alex asked. "Neighbors watching him." She sat down hard. Her hands were shaking. "I got a letter." "What kind of letter?" "The kind that starts with Dear Tenant and ends with We regret to inform you." She pulled a folded paper from her bag and pushed it across the table. "Rent increase. Effective next month, 40%. Alex read it. His jaw tightened. "They can't do this. There are regulations. It's a market rate adjustment. The assistance program covers a fixed amount. If the rent goes above that amount, I pay the difference. And the difference is $1,800 a month. $1,800. Which I don't have, which means I have 60 days to find another apartment. Another school for Marcus, another PT clinic, another everything. 60 days to tear his life apart and start over somewhere else." Her voice cracked, just barely. A hairline fracture that she sealed almost immediately, but he heard it. "Leah, don't offer me money. I know what you're about to say, and I can't. I wasn't going to offer you money." "Then what?" "I was going to say that we're going to figure this out. Together." She stared at him. Her eyes were red but dry. She didn't cry. He was beginning to understand that she had trained herself out of crying the way a soldier trains out of flinching. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care?" "Because you asked me if a photo was beautiful and it woke me up. Because your son waves at me every morning and it's the best part of my day. Because I've been dead for 18 months and you and Marcus are the first thing that made me want to be alive." Leah's hands stopped shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. "Alex, you don't know what you're getting into. My life is a mess. I have nothing. I have a kid who needs 24-hour care and a bank account that's negative and an ex who doesn't exist and a body that runs on 4 hours of sleep and caffeine. You're a billionaire. You live in a penthouse. You don't need this." "You're right. I don't need this." "Then why?" "I don't need this. I want this. There's a difference, a huge one. You taught me that." She looked away. Her jaw was tight. He could see the battle happening behind her eyes, the part of her that wanted to let him in, fighting the part that had been punished every single time she'd trusted someone. "If you leave," she said quietly, "it won't just break me. It'll break him. He doesn't have a father. He doesn't have anyone except me. And if he starts to love you and you walk away, I'm not walking away." Derek said that too. "I'm not Derek. Prove it." It was the second time in 2 days a woman had said those words to him. His daughter in Boston, Leah in a coffee shop. 2 women, both exhausted, both burned, both standing in front of him demanding the one thing money couldn't buy. I will, Alex said. Leah searched his face for a long time. Then she nodded, not the full trusting nod. The careful one. The one that said, I'll give you a chance, but I'm watching every step you take. Okay, she said. Okay. But Alex, whatever this is, it has to be real, not charity, not guilt, not some rich guy playing savior to feel better about himself. Real. Real, he repeated. She picked up her coffee, took a sip, set it down. Then start by calling your daughter more than once a week. Fix that first. Fix you first. Then we'll figure out the rest. He smiled. You're bossy. I'm a mother. Same thing. That afternoon, Alex walked into his office and found Richard waiting with two people he didn't expect: Gerald Henderson, the longest-serving board member at Carter Enterprises, and a woman Alex recognized from the New York Post's media division. What is this? Alex said. Richard stood up. Alex, we need to talk. About what? Henderson stepped forward. 71 years old. White hair, blue eyes, the kind of face that looked friendly at galas and lethal in boardrooms. About your priorities, Alex, Henderson said, and about whether they still align with this company's. Alex looked at Richard. Richard looked at the floor. You want to explain what's going on? Alex said. Henderson reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph, placed it face up on Alex's desk. It was a shot of Alex and Leah, sitting in Giuliani's. Leah laughing. Marcus between them. Alex leaning forward, his whole body turned toward her like she was the only person in the room. Where did you get this? Alex said. His voice was flat, dangerous. That doesn't matter, Henderson said. What matters is that the Wall Street Journal has 3 more just like it, and they're asking questions. Questions about what I had coffee with my neighbor. You had coffee with a woman the media is going to describe as a low-income single mother with a disabled child. And you're the CEO of a publicly traded company with a fiduciary responsibility to... Finish that sentence, Gerald. I dare you. The room went quiet. Henderson's jaw worked. Richard shifted in his chair. I'm trying to protect you, Henderson said. No. You're trying to protect the stock price. Those are not the same thing. Alex picked up the photograph, looked at it one more time, Leah laughing, Marcus grinning, the morning light cutting through Giuliani's dirty window, and put it in his pocket. This meeting is over, he said. Alex, Richard started. I said it's over. He walked out carrying the photograph like a man carrying a match in a room full of gasoline, and he didn't look back. He carried that photograph for 3 days. It stayed in his jacket pocket, the one Henderson had slapped onto his desk like a warrant. Alex touched it every few hours, running his thumb across the edge of the paper, feeling the crease where he'd folded it. Leah laughing, Marcus grinning, the two of them looking more alive in a grainy surveillance shot than anyone Alex had sat across from in a boardroom in years. He didn't tell Leah about the photograph. He didn't tell her about Henderson. He didn't tell her that somewhere in a newsroom a journalist was connecting dots between a billionaire CEO and a single mother on housing assistance, building a story that would sell papers and destroy lives. Instead, he showed up at Giuliani's every morning at 6:45. Ordered 3 cappuccinos. Watched Marcus wave at him. Listened to Leah talk about her day, the therapy sessions, the gallery shifts, the landlord, who still hadn't returned her calls about the rent increase. And every morning, he sat across from her with a grenade in his pocket and said nothing. On the 4th day, the grenade went off. Alex was in his office at 7:30 in the morning when Janet walked in without knocking. In 11 years, she had never walked in without knocking. You need to see this, she said, and put her phone on his desk. The headline was from the New York Post's page 6, Carter Enterprises, CEO's secret coffee dates with single mom neighbor. There were 4 photos, Alex and Leah at Giuliani's. Alex kneeling in the hallway fixing Marcus's wheelchair. Alex holding the door for Leah as she pushed Marcus through the lobby, and one that made his blood go cold. Alex standing outside 14B at 11 at night, leaning against the doorframe, talking to Leah, both of them smiling. The article was short but surgical. It named Leah. It named Marcus. It mentioned the housing assistance program. It mentioned Marcus's disability. It used the phrase unlikely romance twice and sources close to the company 3 times. Alex read it once. Then he picked up his phone and called Richard. "Did you do this, Alex? Did you leak this, Richard, yes or no?" "I didn't leak anything. Henderson has his own contacts. I warned you." "You warned me. You sat in that room with him. You brought a media consultant to my office. You let him ambush me, and now you're telling me you warned me. I was trying to manage the situation before it." The situation is that a woman who works 3 jobs to keep her disabled son alive is now on page 6 because she had coffee with me. That's the situation you were managing. Richard was quiet. Alex could hear him breathing. "The board is calling an emergency session," Richard said. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. "On what grounds?" "Conduct unbecoming. Potential reputational damage. Henderson's got the votes, Alex. He's been working this for weeks." "He's got nothing." "He's got 5 board members who are nervous about the stock price, a CEO who's been canceling meetings and flying to Boston on Wednesdays, and now a tabloid story that's trending on Twitter. That's not nothing." Alex hung up. He sat in his chair for exactly 30 seconds. Then he grabbed his coat and left the building. He was at Leah's door by 8:15. He knocked 3 times. Hard. She opened it, holding Marcus. Her face told him everything she'd already seen it. "Come in," she said. He walked inside. The apartment was small, tiny compared to his, but it was alive in a way his penthouse hadn't been since Sarah. Art on the walls. Marcus's therapy equipment in the corner. A stack of sketches on the kitchen table. The smell of coffee and something baking. Leah set Marcus in his wheelchair, locked the wheels, and turned to Alex. "When were you going to tell me?" she asked. "Tell you what? Don't do that. Don't play dumb. You knew this was coming. You've been sitting across from me every morning for a week looking like a man with a secret. So when were you going to tell me that your company was watching us?" Alex felt the ground shift. "How did you know about that?" "Because I'm not stupid, Alex. A photographer doesn't show up at a coffee shop at 6:45 in the morning by accident. Those pictures were taken by someone who knew exactly where we'd be and exactly when we'd be there. Someone inside your world did this." He couldn't argue. She was right. "I found out 4 days ago," he said. "Henderson, one of my board members, he had the photos. He confronted me in my office." 4 days ago. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were on fire. "You've known for 4 days that my name was about to be dragged into a tabloid, that my son's disability was going to be used as a headline, and you didn't think I deserved to know. I was trying to handle it." "Handle it like you handle a business deal, like you manage a problem. Is that what we are? Alex, a problem to be managed." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "Because right now I've got reporters calling the gallery asking about my relationship with you. My boss pulled me aside this morning and asked if I was dating a billionaire. My landlord, the same one who won't return my calls about the rent, suddenly wants a meeting. And my son's name is on the internet next to words like disabled and charity case and unlikely. So tell me what you meant." Alex stood in her kitchen and took it. Every word. He didn't defend himself. He didn't deflect. He stood there and let her anger hit him like a wave because she had earned every ounce of it. "You're right," he said. "I should have told you the moment I knew." "Then why didn't you?" "Because I was afraid you'd do exactly what you're doing right now. I was afraid you'd look at me and see someone who brought chaos into your life instead of what coffee and wrench repairs." She shook her head. "Alex, I can't afford chaos. I literally cannot afford it. I have 60 days to figure out where we're going to live. I have a son who needs stability more than anything in the world. And now I have my face on page 6 next to a man I've known for 2 weeks." "I know." Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you live in a world where this kind of thing blows over. Stocks dip, stocks recover. Headlines come and go. But in my world, this follows me. Employers Google my name. Marcus's school sees this. Other parents see this. I become the single mom who's sleeping with the billionaire next door, and no one cares that it's not true, because the story is better than the truth. Leah. I'm not finished. She took a step closer. I let you in. I don't do that. I don't let anyone in. Marcus's father left because he couldn't handle real life, and I swore I would never put myself in a position where someone else's choices could hurt my son. And now here I am. Marcus made a sound, a soft, distressed sound. He could feel it, the tension, the anger, the fear. Leah turned, immediately crossed the room, knelt in front of his chair and took his hands. It's okay, baby, she said. Her voice transformed all the fire, all the fury gone in an instant, replaced by something so gentle it made Alex's chest ache. Mama's okay. Everything's okay. Marcus's hand reached for her face. She pressed his palm against her cheek and held it there, the same gesture from the coffee shop, the same anchor. Alex watched them. And in that moment, standing in a kitchen that was smaller than his closet, watching a woman choose her son over her anger, over her fear, over everything else in the world, he understood something he'd been too broken to understand before. This wasn't about him. It had never been about him. I'll fix this, he said. Leah didn't turn around. How? I don't know yet, but I will fix it. And if fixing it means I have to walk away, if the only way to protect you and Marcus is for me to disappear, then I'll do that too. She stood up slowly, turned to face him. Her eyes were wet now, not crying but close, closer than he'd ever seen her. Is that what you want? She asked. To walk away. No, it's the last thing I want. Then don't offer it like it's noble. Don't stand in my kitchen and offer to sacrifice yourself like some kind of hero. I don't need a hero, Alex. I need someone who stays. I'll stay. You say that now. I'll say it tomorrow too. She held his gaze for a long time. 10 seconds. 20. The kind of silence that either builds a bridge or burns one. Okay, she finally said. But we do this together. No more secrets. No more handling things behind my back. If something's coming, I need to know. I've survived worse than a tabloid, but I can't survive being blindsided by someone I trust. Together, he said. I promise. She nodded. Then she looked down at Marcus, who was watching Alex with his wide, trusting eyes. He still wants to wave at you, she said quietly. Even now. He heard your voice, and he's been trying to lift his hand since you walked in. Alex knelt in front of Marcus's wheelchair. The boy's hand trembled as it rose slowly, fighting his own muscles, fighting a body that wouldn't cooperate until it was up. A wave. Small, shaking, triumphant. Hey, buddy, Alex said. His voice cracked. He didn't try to hide it. I'm not going anywhere. Marcus made the sound again. The one Leah said was the closest thing he had to a name. Alex took the boy's hand and held it, and something that had been cracked inside his chest since Sarah died finally broke all the way open. He called Maddie from the hallway. I saw the article, she said before he could speak. Maddie. Is she okay? Is Marcus okay? He stopped. He'd expected anger, judgment, concern for the company, but his daughter's first question was about Leah and Marcus. She's angry, he said. Rightfully. Who leaked it? A board member named Henderson. He's been trying to push me out for months. This gave him ammunition. What are you going to do? I have a board meeting tomorrow. Emergency session. Are they going to fire you? They can try. Dad? Her voice sharpened. This isn't a game. If Henderson has the votes, he might. And you're okay with that. Alex leaned against the hallway wall. The same wall where he and Leah had sat that first night talking about Sarah and Marcus and all the things that grief and survival do to a person. "Your mother told me something once," he said, right before the diagnosis. "We were sitting on the balcony and she said, 'Alex, you've spent your whole life building things that don't matter. Build something that matters.'" I thought she was talking about the foundation, the charity work, but she wasn't. What was she talking about? This. People, connections, the stuff that doesn't show up on a balance sheet. Maddie was quiet. He could hear her processing the same way Sarah used to go quiet when she was deciding something important. "Then fight," Maddie said. "But fight smart. Henderson's been on that board for 20 years. He knows how to work a room." "So do I." "Yeah, but you've been sleepwalking for 18 months. He hasn't. Get your head in the game, Dad. For real." "When did you get so tough?" "I learned from Mom." He smiled. "I'm coming back to Boston when this is over." "You better. And bring Leah next time. I want to meet the woman who woke up my father." He hung up and went back to his penthouse. The window was still broken. He'd had the building maintenance tape plastic over it, but the cold still leaked through, a constant reminder of the night everything changed. He sat at his desk, the real one, the one at home, the one Sarah had picked out at an antique shop in Connecticut, and started writing. Not an email, not a memo, not talking points for the board meeting. He wrote a letter. To Henderson, to the board, to everyone who thought they could use Leah and Marcus as leverage in a corporate power play. He wrote until 2 in the morning. Then he deleted everything and started over. By 4 a.m. he had it. 3 pages. The most honest thing he'd written since Sarah's eulogy. At 6:45, he walked into Giuliani's. Leah was already there. Marcus was in his chair drinking a cappuccino through his straw, wearing a hat that was too big for his head. "New hat," Alex said. "Dollar store," Leah said. He picked it out himself. Took him 20 minutes to point at the one he wanted. Alex sat down. Looked at her. She looked back. "You didn't sleep," she said. "No." "Me neither. I was up all night reading comments under the article, which I know you're going to tell me was a bad idea." "Was it a bad idea?" "Terrible idea. People are cruel, Alex. They don't even know us, and they've already decided who we are. I'm the gold digger. You're the lonely billionaire. Marcus is the prop." Her jaw tightened. "Someone called my son a prop. Don't read the comments." "Too late. Then read this instead." He pulled the letter from his jacket and slid it across the table. "This is what I'm saying to the board tomorrow." Leah picked it up. She read slowly, her lips moving slightly, the way people read when every word matters. Marcus reached for his straw. Alex held it steady for him, without thinking, without looking like he'd been doing it for years instead of days. Leah put the letter down. Her eyes were bright. "You can't say this," she said. "Why not?" "Because you're telling them you'd rather lose the company than compromise on your personal life. Alex, this is a publicly traded corporation. You can't—" "I already did. They'll remove you." "Maybe. Maybe you built that company. It's your name on the building. And Sarah's name was supposed to be next to mine. She was supposed to be the reason any of it mattered. And when she died, I kept going because I didn't know how to stop. But it doesn't matter anymore, Leah. The building. The stock price, Henderson, and his votes. None of it matters if I go back to being the man I was 3 weeks ago. The one who threw his ring through a window and sat in the dark and waited for the empty to swallow him whole." Leah's hand found his across the table. She held it. Not gently, tightly, fiercely, the way she held Marcus, like she was refusing to let go of something the world was trying to take. "You're insane," she said. "Probably. You're going to walk into that boardroom and blow up your career for a woman you've known for 2 weeks. I'm going to walk into that boardroom and be the man my wife wanted me to be. You just happen to be the reason I remembered who that was." She squeezed his hand. Marcus made his sound the Alex sound Leah called it now, and both of them looked at the boy. "He wants in on the moment," Leah said, laughing through the brightness in her eyes. Alex reached over and ruffled Marcus's hat. The boy grinned. That grin. The one that had started all of this. "Tomorrow morning," Alex said. 9 o'clock. Whatever happens in that room, I'll come straight here after. I'll be here. With the good cappuccino. With the dollar store hat and the 14-pound bag and whatever's left of my dignity. He laughed. She laughed. Marcus laughed, his whole body shaking with it. His head tilted back, that sound that was more joy than any sound Alex had ever heard in a boardroom or a bank or a building with his name on it. They finished their coffee. Leah left first, pushing Marcus into the cold. Her shoulders squared, her chin up. A woman walking into a storm she hadn't asked for, with nothing but a straw, a hat, and the kind of courage that didn't make noise, but could move mountains. Alex sat alone at the table. He took the letter out and read it one more time. 3 pages. The truest thing he'd ever written. Then he folded it, put it back in his pocket, and walked to work. The building was already buzzing when he arrived. He could feel it, the whispers, the sidelong glances, the way people moved out of his path a little too quickly. The article had spread through the company like a virus. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had an opinion. Richard was waiting at his office door. "We need to talk strategy for tomorrow," Richard said. Alex walked past him. "No." "Alex, you can't go in there without—" "I said no, Rich. No strategy. No talking points. No spin." "Then what are you going to do?" Alex turned around, looked at the man who had been his right hand for 15 years, the man who had stood beside him through mergers and acquisitions, and Sarah's funeral, and the long, dark months after. The man who had also sat in a room with Henderson and let him draw first blood. "I'm going to tell the truth," Alex said, "and then we're going to find out who in that room still gives a damn about something other than money." Richard stared at him. Something passed across his face. Fear, maybe. Or recognition. The look of a man watching another man step off a cliff. "You could lose everything," Richard said. Alex reached into his pocket and touched the photograph. Leah laughing, Marcus grinning. A moment so honest it had cracked him open and started putting him back together. "I already lost everything," Alex said. 18 months ago. This is me trying to get it back." He walked into his office and closed the door. Through the glass he could see the city, steel and concrete, and 10 million people living lives that didn't care about stock prices or board votes or tabloid headlines. Somewhere down there, in a small apartment with art on the walls and a wheelchair in the corner, a woman was reading his letter again. His phone buzzed. A text from Leah. "I read it 4 times. Don't you dare change a word." He put the phone down, leaned back in his chair, and waited for morning. Morning came like a verdict. Alex was awake before his alarm. He hadn't really slept, drifted in and out, his mind cycling through the letter, the board, Henderson's face, Leah's voice saying, "Don't you dare change a word." He showered, shaved, and put on the charcoal Tom Ford. Then he took it off. Went to the back of his closet, the part he hadn't touched since the funeral, and pulled out a navy blazer Sarah had bought him 3 years ago. No tie. She would have liked that. He folded the letter into his inside pocket and left. The hallway was quiet. He paused outside 14B. Listened. Nothing. Leah and Marcus were probably already gone. PT started at 8 and she never missed it, not once, not even on the worst days. He put his hand against the door for a second, then pulled it away and walked to the elevator. The lobby was empty except for the doorman Ray, who'd worked the building for 20 years and had never once commented on anything he'd seen. Ray looked at Alex, looked at the blazer and raised an eyebrow. "Different look today, Mr. Carter." "Different day, Ray. Good luck with whatever it is." "How do you know I need luck?" Ray smiled. 40 years in this lobby. You learn to read the walk. Yours says you're heading somewhere that scares you. Alex almost laughed. That obvious. Only to people who pay attention. He took a car to Carter Tower. rode the elevator to the 48th floor. The doors opened onto a silence so thick he could feel it. The executive floor, which normally hummed with movement and noise, was still. People sat at their desks, pretending to work, but their eyes tracked him as he walked toward the boardroom. Janet intercepted him outside. She was holding a coffee and a folder, but her face held something else: worry. "They're all in there," she said. "Henderson arrived at 7. He's been in the room for 2 hours. Who's with him?" "Brewer, Kim, Castellano, Whitfield, and Marsh." Alex counted. 6. Henderson needed 7 for a majority. "Who's not in there?" "Lawrence, Singh, and Declan. They came in separately. Didn't go to Henderson's early session. 3 holdouts. Alex needed them all, plus 1 flip from Henderson's side." "And Richard?" Janet hesitated. "He's in there. He went in with Henderson." Alex absorbed that. Richard, 15 years, business school, Sarah's funeral, the man who knew him better than anyone alive. In the room with Henderson, 2 hours early, behind closed doors. "Okay," Alex said. "Alex." Janet touched his arm. Something she'd never done. "Whatever you're about to do, Sarah would be proud of you." He looked at her. Nodded. Couldn't speak. He pushed open the boardroom doors. 12 people sat around the table. 12 faces turned toward him. Henderson was at the far end, not in the CEO's chair, but close to it, positioned like a man who'd already measured the distance and was ready to close it. Richard was to Henderson's right. He didn't look up when Alex walked in. "Good morning," Alex said. "Sit down, Alex," Henderson said. "I'll stand." A murmur around the table. Board members shifted. Henderson's jaw tightened. "This is an emergency session," Henderson continued, "called under Section 4.7 of the Corporate Charter regarding conduct and leadership concerns that may impact shareholder. I know what it is, Gerald. I wrote the charter. Then you know you're required to address the concerns of this board. I am addressing them. That's why I'm here." He looked around the table. Brewer, 68, old money, nervous about everything. Kim, 55, sharp, a numbers person who cared about data, not drama. Castellano, 70, a Carter board member since the beginning, loyal to the company, but not necessarily to Alex. Whitfield and Marsh, Henderson's people, always had been. Lawrence, 62. Quiet, principled, the kind of man who voted his conscience and nothing else. Singh, 49, the youngest on the board, a tech investor who'd joined 2 years ago. And Declan, 57, a former Marine, straight-backed and impossible to read. "Before Gerald gives you whatever presentation he's prepared," Alex said, "I'd like to say something." "The floor is Henderson's," Whitfield said. He called the session. "The floor belongs to the CEO of this company until this board votes otherwise, and last time I checked, that's still me." Silence. Henderson waved his hand. "Go ahead." Alex pulled the letter from his pocket, unfolded it, looked at it, then set it on the table face down. "I wrote a speech," he said. 3 pages. I was up until 4 in the morning getting every word right, but I'm not going to read it. Because what I need to say doesn't fit in a letter." He put his hands on the back of his chair and leaned forward. 18 months ago, my wife died. You all know that. Some of you came to the funeral. Some of you sent flowers. All of you gave me space, and I appreciate that. But here's what none of you know: since Sarah died, I've been running this company from inside a coffin. I show up, I perform, I hit the numbers, but I have been dead. And every single one of you let me be dead because the stock price didn't suffer." No one moved. 3 weeks ago, I met my neighbor, a woman named Leah Johnson. She has a son named Marcus who's 8 years old and has cerebral palsy. She works 3 jobs. She can barely pay her rent. And she accidentally sent me a text message at midnight that was meant for her sister, a photo of her and Marcus laughing on a kitchen floor. I looked at that photo, and for the first time in 18 months, I felt something. Henderson opened his mouth. Alex kept going. "I know you've all seen the article. I know what it looks like. Billionaire CEO has a midlife crisis, starts having coffee with the neighbor, neglects the company. That's the story Henderson wants you to believe because it's clean and simple, and it gives him what he's wanted for 2 years, my chair. That's not... Henderson started. Don't interrupt me, Gerald. You've had 2 hours. I've had 2 minutes. Henderson sat back. His face was red. Here's what actually happened. I met a woman who reminded me that there are things more important than quarterly earnings. I met a boy who waves at me every morning, and it takes him everything he's got just to lift his hand. I started sleeping again. I called my daughter for the first time in months and flew to Boston to see her. I poured my scotch down the drain. I started being a human being again instead of a machine that signs documents and attends meetings. He looked at Richard. Richard still wasn't looking at him. And in response to that, in response to me becoming a functioning person again, someone in this room leaked private photographs to the tabloids. Someone put Leah's name in the press. Someone made sure that an 8-year-old boy with cerebral palsy was described as a prop in an internet comment section. Someone decided that my personal life was a threat to their agenda and used a woman and a child as ammunition. He let that sit. The room was graveyard quiet. So here's my question to this board, not as your CEO, but as a man. Is that who we are? Is that what this company stands for? Because if it is, you don't need to vote me out. I'll walk. Lawrence spoke first. No one here authorized any leak, Alex. Someone in this room made it happen, Tom. Those photos didn't take themselves. All eyes moved to Henderson. Henderson's jaw was set, his hands flat on the table. I did what I thought was necessary to protect this company, Henderson said. The CEO of a publicly traded firm cannot be seen doing what Gerald, having coffee, fixing a wheelchair, talking to his neighbor. Tell me exactly what conduct you're concerned about. Say it out loud. Henderson's eyes narrowed. You've been distracted, missing meetings, canceling on clients, the Korean deal. The Korean deal closed yesterday. Janet. He looked toward the door. Janet stepped in, placed a folder on the table and stepped back out. Signed at 4 p.m., $214 million. The Koreans weren't insulted, Gerald. They were negotiating. Which you'd know if you understood anything beyond boardroom politics. Kim pulled the folder toward her, opened it, scanned the numbers. Looked up. These are solid, she said. Better than projected. The Korean deal isn't the point. Henderson said, his voice rising. Then what is the point? Say it, in front of everyone. Henderson stood up. His chair scraped the floor. The point is that the CEO of Carter Enterprises is in a relationship with a woman who lives in subsidized housing, who has no professional standing, who is a liability. Careful, Gerald. Who is a liability to this company's public image and whose presence in your life has already generated negative press coverage that... You generated that coverage. You did that. Not Leah, not Marcus. You. I protected the shareholders. You attacked a single mother and a disabled child to protect your power grab. Those are not the same thing. The room erupted. Brewer tried to say something. Castellano talked over him. Whitfield raised his voice. Marsh banged the table. In the chaos, Alex watched 3 people. Lawrence, Singh, and Declan, the holdouts. Lawrence was leaning back, arms crossed, watching everything. Singh was taking notes. Declan sat perfectly still, his marine posture unchanged, his eyes moving from Henderson to Alex and back like a man assessing a battlefield. Enough, Declan said. One word. The room went silent. Declan had that effect. You didn't argue with a man who'd survived Fallujah. Alex, Declan said. I have one question. Go ahead. Are you compromised? Not emotionally. I don't care about emotionally. Professionally. Can you run this company? The Korean deal is on the table. Q4 projections are ahead of schedule. Our infrastructure division just won the city contract. I've been running this company in my sleep for 18 months. Imagine what I can do now that I'm actually awake. Declan nodded once, turned to Henderson. Gerald, I have one question for you too. Henderson straightened. Of course. Who took the photographs? Henderson blinked. I don't see how that's... A private citizen and her minor child were surveilled, and their images were distributed to the media without consent. If this company is connected to that in any way, we're not looking at a PR problem. We're looking at a lawsuit. So I'll ask again, who took the photographs? Henderson said nothing. Gerald. Declan's voice dropped half an octave. Answer the question. It was handled through a third-party consultant for the company's protection. On whose authorization? Silence. On your authorization, Lawrence said. Not a question. Henderson's silence was confirmation enough. Singh put her pen down. I've heard enough. I'm calling for a counter-motion. Motion to censure Gerald Henderson for unauthorized surveillance media leaks and conduct that expose this company to legal liability. Seconded, Lawrence said. Henderson's face went white. You can't. We can, Declan said. And we are. The vote was fast, 7-5. Henderson was censured, stripped of his committee chairmanships, and given a choice: resign from the board quietly, or face a full investigation into the surveillance authorization. Henderson chose resignation. He stood up, buttoned his jacket, and looked at Alex with the cold, measured fury of a man who'd lost a war he thought was already won. You're making a mistake, Henderson said. I've made plenty, Alex said. This isn't one of them. Henderson walked out. The door closed behind him. The room exhaled. Richard hadn't spoken once during the entire session. He sat in his chair staring at the table, his hands folded in front of him. When the room cleared, he stayed. Alex waited until everyone was gone. Then he sat down across from his oldest friend. Rich. Richard looked up. His eyes were red. I didn't know about the surveillance, Richard said. I swear to God, Alex, I knew Henderson was making moves. I knew he had photos. But I didn't know he had someone following you. But you knew he was going to use them. Yes. And you didn't warn me. Richard's jaw worked. I thought if I stayed close to him I could control it. Manage the fallout. Keep it from going nuclear. How'd that work out? It didn't. Richard leaned forward. I screwed up. I've been watching you self-destruct for 18 months, and when you finally started putting yourself back together, I let my fear of Henderson override my loyalty to you. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. Alex studied the man across from him. 15 years. Every deal, every crisis, every late night. Richard had been there for all of it. He'd also been there in the room with Henderson hedging his bets. Sarah liked you, Alex said. I know. She told me once that you were the only person at this company she trusted. Richard closed his eyes. Don't. She said, Rich will always protect you, even when you don't deserve it. Alex. Was she right? Richard opened his eyes. Yes, she was right. And I failed at it. But I am asking you not as your COO, as your friend, to let me make it right. Alex was quiet for a long time. The boardroom was empty around them. The city moved outside the glass. There's a woman in my building, Alex said. Apartment 14B. She got a rent increase notice 40% effective next month. She's on a housing assistance program that Carter Enterprises funded 6 years ago as a tax write-off. I need you to find out who owns that building, who authorized the increase, and whether there's any connection to Henderson or anyone on this board. Richard blinked. You think the rent increase was connected? I think a lot of things happened in the last 3 weeks that weren't coincidental, and I think the woman I care about is about to lose her home while we sit in a room full of leather chairs arguing about stock prices. Richard stood up. I'll have it by end of day, and... Rich. Yeah. If you're in, you're all the way in. No more hedging, no more managing. If I'm building something new, I need to know you're standing next to me, not behind me, calculating the exit. Richard nodded. All the way in. He left. Alex sat alone in the boardroom. He pulled out his phone and called Leah. She answered immediately. How bad is it? Henderson's gone. Silence. Then, gone as in? Resigned. Forced out. The board censured him for the surveillance and the leak. Alex. Her voice broke. Just barely. Just enough. Are you serious? Dead serious. And your job? Still mine. She exhaled a long, shuddering breath that carried 18 months of his grief and 3 years of her survival, and the accumulated weight of 2 people who had been carrying the world alone for far too long. I need to tell you something, she said. What? Marcus drew a picture this morning, at therapy. His therapist said he's never done that before. He doesn't have the motor control, but he grabbed a crayon and he drew something. It's a scribble. But his therapist asked him what it was and he pointed at the door. The door. The front door. Of our apartment. He drew the hallway, Alex. He drew you. Alex put his hand over his eyes. His chest was full in a way that had nothing to do with business or boards or victories. Full in the way that only happens when someone small and brave and broken in all the same places you are decides to let you into their world. I'm coming home, he said. It's 10 in the morning. I know. You just saved your company and you're leaving at 10 in the morning. The company will be there tomorrow. You and Marcus are there right now. She laughed. That laugh, the one that had started everything. Bring coffee, she said. He stopped at Giuliani's, 3 cappuccinos, carried them to the 14th floor, knocked on 14B. Leah opened the door. Marcus was behind her in his wheelchair, a crayon still clutched in his hand, a piece of paper on his tray. The drawing was a scribble, wild, uncontrolled, barely recognizable. But in the center, 2 shapes leaned toward each other, one tall, one small. Alex knelt in front of Marcus and looked at the drawing. That's us, he asked. Marcus grinned, lifted his hand, waved. Alex took the drawing, folded it carefully, and put it in his pocket next to the letter he'd never read, and the photograph Henderson had tried to use as a weapon. 3 pieces of paper, a letter about truth, a photo about love, and a drawing about the only thing that mattered showing up. He stood, handed Leah her cappuccino, and walked inside. The door closed behind him. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Alex Carter was exactly where he was supposed to be. That evening, Richard called. I found it, he said. The building, the rent increase. You were right, it wasn't coincidental. The property management company that owns your building is a subsidiary of Whitfield Holdings. Whitfield, as in board member Whitfield. Former board member as of about 3 hours from now. Turns out Henderson wasn't working alone. Whitfield authorized the rent increase the same week the photos were taken. It was leverage, Alex. They were going to push Leah out, isolate you, and use the fallout to justify the removal vote. Alex was standing in Leah's kitchen. She was across the room feeding Marcus his dinner. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see his face and her eyes never left him. Can you reverse it? Alex asked. Already done. I called Whitfield's property manager and informed them that any retaliatory rent increase targeting a tenant in a Carter-funded housing program constitutes a breach of the program's terms. The increase has been rescinded. Leah's rent stays where it is. Alex closed his eyes. Thank you, Rich. I told you, all the way in. He hung up, walked across the room, sat down next to Leah. Your rent increase just got canceled, he said. She put Marcus's spoon down. What? The increase was orchestrated by someone on my board. Part of the same plan as the photos. It's been reversed. Your rent stays the same. Leah stared at him. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. They targeted my apartment. They went after my home to get to you. Yes. And you stopped it. Richard stopped it. I just asked him to look. She stood up, walked to the window, put both hands on the sill and leaned forward, her shoulders rising and falling. Leah, Give me a second." He gave her a second. Marcus watched his mother from his chair, his hand wrapped around a crayon, his eyes wide and worried. Leah turned around. Her face was wet. For the first time since he'd known her, she was crying. Not the quiet, controlled kind, the real kind. The kind that comes from holding everything together for so long, that when someone finally takes one piece of the weight, the whole structure shakes. "I've been doing this alone for 8 years, she said. 8 years. And no one, not my sister, not Marcus's father, not anyone has ever fought for us. Not once." Alex stood up. "That's over now." "You don't understand. I built my whole life around the idea that nobody was coming, that I had to do it all myself, that asking for help was weakness and trusting someone was a trap. And then you show up with your broken window and your wrench and your stupid cappuccinos, and you fight a board of directors for a woman you've known for 3 weeks. Best 3 weeks of my life." She laughed through the tears. "You're impossible." "So I've been told." She crossed the room and stood in front of him, close, closer than they'd ever been. He could see the exhaustion in her face, the years of survival etched into the skin around her eyes, the strength that she carried like armor, and the softness that she hid underneath it. "I'm going to trust you," she said. "And if you break that trust, I won't recover. You understand I physically will not recover." "I understand." "And Marcus?" "Marcus drew me in the hallway. I'm not going anywhere." She put her hands on his chest, felt his heartbeat. He put his hands over hers. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Marcus made his sound, the Alex sound. They both turned to look at him, and the boy was grinning, his hand up, waving at both of them like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. 3 weeks passed, and Alex Carter became a man no one at Carter Enterprises recognized. He still showed up, still ran the meetings, still closed the deals. But he left at 5. Sometimes 4:30. Janet stopped questioning it after the first week. The numbers didn't lie. The company was performing better than it had in 2 years. Alex was sharper, faster, more present in every room he entered. The difference was that now he had somewhere to go when he left. Every evening, he knocked on 14B. Every evening, Leah opened the door. Sometimes Marcus was in his chair. Sometimes he was on the floor doing his exercises, his thin legs pushing against resistance bands, while Leah counted reps and cheered like he was running a marathon. Sometimes the apartment smelled like burned pasta, because Leah had tried to cook and answer emails and help Marcus with homework at the same time. Alex started cooking. Not well. Sarah had been the cook, and after she died, he'd survived on takeout and protein bars. But he bought a cookbook, a real one with dog-eared pages and sauce stains. He made spaghetti the first night, overcooked it by 12 minutes. "This is terrible," Leah said, chewing slowly. "I know. Like, impressively terrible. You had to try to make it this bad." "I didn't try. It comes naturally." Marcus pushed his plate forward, which Leah said was his way of asking for more. Alex gave him a second helping. The boy ate every bite. "He has no standards," Leah said. "Or maybe he's the only honest food critic in this apartment." She threw a napkin at him. He caught it. They both laughed. Marcus made his sound the Alex sound and banged his hand on the tray of his wheelchair, which was his version of applause. These were the moments Alex held on to. Not the boardroom victories, not the deals. These small, ordinary, imperfect moments in a small apartment with a woman who challenged him and a boy who changed him. But he couldn't stop thinking about what came next. The idea had been growing since the board meeting, since Henderson's resignation, since the night he'd sat in Leah's kitchen and watched her draw on a napkin while helping Marcus with his therapy exercises, sketching absently the way some people fidget or tap their fingers, except that what Leah sketched was beautiful. Cityscapes. Faces. Marcus in motion, the way she imagined he'd look if his body worked the way his spirit did. She drew him running, swimming, climbing trees, A parallel life rendered in pencil on paper napkins and the backs of envelopes. "You're an artist," Alex had said that night. "I used to be. Now I'm a mother." Those aren't mutually exclusive. They are when you work 3 jobs and sleep 4 hours a night. Art requires time and space and peace. I have none of those things. He'd filed that away. Let it sit. Let it grow. Now 3 weeks later, he was ready. He called Maddie first. "I need your opinion on something," he said. "Since when do you ask for my opinion?" "Since I started trying harder." She was quiet. Then, "Okay, shoot. I want to start a foundation, not a corporate tax write-off. A real one. For families with disabled children, housing, therapy, education, everything. And I want Leah to run the arts program." "You want to give your girlfriend a job?" "She's not my..." "It's not about giving her a job. It's about building something that matters with someone who understands what these families need, because she's lived it. Every foundation I've ever funded has been run by people who studied poverty in graduate school. Leah lived it. She's still living it." Maddie was quiet again. Longer this time. "Mom would love this," she said. "You think so?" "Dad, she spent her whole life trying to get you to care about something other than the bottom line. She'd love everything about this. The foundation. Leah, Marcus, all of it." "There's something else." "What?" "I want to name it after her. The Sarah Carter Foundation." He heard Maddie inhale. A sharp, catching breath. Then silence that lasted so long he thought the call had dropped. "Maddie, I'm here." Her voice was thick. "I'm here. Yes, God, yes. Name it after her. I want you involved too. On the board. Not as a figurehead for real. You know nonprofit work better than anyone I've ever met. You're serious. Dead serious. Then yes, 1,000 times yes." She paused. "Have you told Leah?" "Not yet." "When?" "Tonight." "Dad." "Yeah. Don't screw this up." He almost laughed. "Helpful. Thank you." "I'm serious. This is the best idea you've ever had. Including Carter Enterprises. Including all of it. Don't screw it up." He hung up and called Richard. "I need you to set up a meeting with legal," Alex said. "Foundation structure. Nonprofit. I want articles of incorporation drafted by end of week." "What kind of foundation?" "Families with disabled children. Comprehensive housing assistance therapy. Access educational support. And an arts program." "An arts program. You heard me. Alex, arts programs don't exactly scream corporate philanthropy. The board is going to ask. The board is going to support it because it's the right thing to do, and because our PR department is going to make sure every news outlet in the country knows that Carter Enterprises is doing something that actually matters for once." Richard was quiet. Then, "You've thought about this. For 3 weeks. Does this have anything to do with Leah?" "Everything." "She know?" "Not yet. I'll have the paperwork by Friday." Alex left the office at 4, stopped at Giuliani's. 3 cappuccinos. Then he did something he'd never done before. He stopped at the dollar store on the corner and bought a pack of crayons. The big box, 64 colors. He knocked on 14B. Leah opened the door. She looked tired, more tired than usual. Her eyes were swollen. "What happened?" Alex said immediately. "Nothing. Come in." "Leah, what happened?" She stepped aside. He walked in. Marcus was in his chair by the kitchen table, but something was different. He wasn't moving. His usual energy, the hand-waving, the sounds, the constant effort to engage was absent. He sat still, his eyes focused on something in his lap. "He had a bad day at therapy," Leah said quietly. "The new protocol isn't working. His therapist said..." She stopped, swallowed. "She said we might be approaching the limit of what physical therapy can do for his mobility. That we should start thinking about long-term adaptive strategies instead of recovery goals. Alex set the coffees down. What does that mean? It means they're giving up. They won't say it that way. They'll say realistic expectations and quality of life focus and all the clinical language that means the same thing. Your son is not going to get better. Stop hoping. That's not what it means. That's exactly what it means, Alex. I've been through this before. When he was 2, they said he'd never sit up. He sits up. When he was 4, they said he'd never use his hands. He uses his hands. Every single time they put a ceiling on my son, he breaks through it. But I can hear it in their voices now. They're tired of being wrong. So they're setting the ceiling lower so they can finally be right. Alex knelt in front of Marcus. The boy looked at him. His eyes were different today, not sad exactly, but heavy. The heaviness of a child who can feel the adults around him losing faith even if he doesn't understand why. "Hey buddy," Alex said. "I brought you something." He pulled out the crayons. 64 colors. Put them on Marcus's tray. Marcus stared at the box. Then his hand moved slowly, trembling the familiar battle against his own muscles, and he touched the box. His fingers found the edge, tried to open it. Couldn't. Tried again. His hand shook. His face tightened with concentration. Alex didn't help. He waited. Leah stood behind him, one hand pressed to her mouth. Marcus's fingers found the tab, pulled. The box opened. Crayons spilled across his tray in a cascade of color rolling in every direction. Marcus looked at the mess he'd made and grinned. That grin. The one from the photo. The one that had started everything. He picked up a crayon red and put it to the paper that was still on his tray. Drew a line. Shaky, uneven but deliberate. Then another. Then another. "What's he drawing?" Alex asked. Leah leaned closer. She watched her son's hand move across the paper, each stroke a victory against a body that wouldn't cooperate. "I think—" She stopped. "Alex, look." 3 figures. Stick figures barely recognizable, drawn with the wild, uncontrolled strokes of a child fighting for every line. One tall, one medium, one small, in something that could have been a wheelchair or could have been a throne. "That's us," Leah whispered. Marcus looked up at both of them, lifted his crayon hand, waved. Alex stood up, turned to Leah, and took both her hands. "I need to tell you something," he said. "If this is bad news, I swear to God, it's not bad news. Sit down." "You sit down. I'll stand. I've gotten every piece of bad news in my life while sitting. I take the good stuff standing up." "Okay." He took a breath. "I'm starting a foundation, the Sarah Carter Foundation, for families with disabled children, housing, therapy, education, everything that Marcus needs, and that 1,000 other kids like him need. Real support, not a tax write-off, not corporate window dressing. The real thing." Leah stared at him. "You're naming it after your wife?" "Yes." "Alex, I'm not finished. The foundation will have an arts program, a real one, not an afterthought, a core program. Art therapy for kids, creative workshops for parents, gallery space for work created by families in the program. And I want you to build it." She didn't move. "Build it. Design it. Run it. You know what these families need because you are one. Every sketch you've ever drawn on a napkin, every piece you never had time to finish, every idea you shelved because survival came first. This is where it goes. This is what it becomes." "I can't, Alex. I'm not a non-profit executive. I'm a gallery assistant who draws on napkins." "You're an artist who's been surviving instead of creating. There's a difference. And I'm offering you the chance to do both. This is too much. It's not enough. It won't ever be enough. But it's a start." Leah pulled her hands free, walked to the window, stood there with her back to him, her shoulders tight. "Leah, I'm thinking. Take your time." "I don't have time. I've never had time. That's the whole problem." She turned around. Her eyes were fierce, not angry, not sad, but burning with something he recognized. Hope. The dangerous kind. The kind you keep locked away because every time you let it out, the world crushes it. "If I do this," she said, "it has to be mine, not yours, not Carter Enterprises. Mine, my vision, my program, my name on the door next to Sarah's." That's exactly what I want. And Marcus is part of it, not as a mascot, not as an inspiration story, as a participant, a kid in the program getting the same services as every other kid. Obviously. And I don't take a salary until the program is funded for at least 2 years. I won't be the person who takes money from families who need it. We'll fund it for 5 years up front, minimum. She shook her head. "You're out of your mind." "I've been told." "By who?" "You, multiple times. Maddie, Richard, Ray the doorman. It's becoming a consensus." She almost smiled. Almost. But there was still something holding her back. He could see at the last wall, the deepest one, the one that Derek had built when he walked out, and that 8 years of single motherhood had reinforced with steel and silence. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. The real reason. Not the philanthropy speech. Not the corporate vision. Why? Alex looked at her. Then at Marcus, who was still drawing, lost in a world of color and effort and creation. Then back at Leah. "Because I threw my wedding ring through a window and you sent me a photo of your son. Because you asked me if something was beautiful and I didn't know how to answer. Because Sarah told me to build something that matters, and I finally understand what she meant. And because every morning for the last 3 weeks, I've woken up and the first thing I think about is whether Marcus needs a new straw, and whether you've slept enough, and whether the wheel on his chair is still holding. And that right there is the first thing that's mattered to me since I lost her." Leah crossed the room, stood in front of him, put her hands on his face. Both hands the way she held Marcus when she needed him to hear her, to really hear her. "I'm terrified," she said. "Me too." "What if it falls apart?" "Then we fix it. Like axles and wheels and broken windows. We fix it. You promise?" "I promise." She kissed him. Not the way people kiss in movies, not dramatic, not sweeping, not accompanied by music. She kissed him the way a woman kisses a man she's decided to trust with her life. Quietly, firmly, with her eyes open. Marcus banged his crayon on the tray. They pulled apart and looked at him. He was holding up his drawing. 3 stick figures, tall, medium, small. And above them in shaky red crayon, something that might have been a heart, or might have been a house, or might have been both. "I think he approves," Leah said. "I think he approved before we did." She laughed. That laugh. The first sound that had cracked Alex's chest open. The sound he wanted to hear every morning for the rest of his life. The next 6 months moved fast. Richard delivered the foundation paperwork by Friday as promised. Legal incorporated the Sarah Carter Foundation by the following Wednesday. Maddie flew down from Boston and spent 2 weeks helping Leah design the arts program, and the 2 women, the daughter who'd lost her mother and the mother who'd built a world alone, became something neither of them expected. Sisters. Not by blood, by choice. "Your daughter is a force of nature," Leah told Alex one evening. "She gets that from her mother. She gets that from both of you. She's got Sarah's heart and your stubbornness. It's a terrifying combination." The foundation launched in the spring. A small office on West 23rd, not far from the gallery where Leah used to work, the gallery she'd given notice to on the same day she'd signed the paperwork that made her the founding director of the Sarah Carter Arts Program. The waiting list filled in 2 weeks. 47 families, then 60, then 100. Marcus was the first kid enrolled. His therapy continued, new protocol, new team specialists that the foundation's healthcare program made accessible. And the arts program gave him something therapy couldn't. A canvas. A voice. The crayons Alex had bought at the dollar store became Marcus's language, and what he said in color and line and scribble was more articulate than anything words could carry. His first real drawing, a piece that went beyond scribbles into something intentional, hung in the foundation's front office. 3 figures. A hallway. A door between them that was open. Leah framed it herself. Alex had the penthouse window fixed, replaced the glass. But he kept the crack in the marble floor where the ring had bounced, left it there on purpose. A reminder of the night he'd hit bottom, and the phone had buzzed, and a stranger had asked him a question that changed his life. He bought a new ring. Not for Leah, not yet. For himself. A simple gold band, identical to the one he'd thrown away, except for an inscription inside that only he could see. 2 words. Sarah's words from the balcony, from the conversation that had planted a seed he hadn't watered until it almost died. Build something. On a Tuesday evening in October, 8 months after a wrong number text, 8 months after a photo of a woman and a boy on a kitchen floor, 8 months after Alex Carter stood in a boardroom and chose honesty over power, he sat at Giuliani's with the 3 people who mattered most. Maddie was in from Boston. Leah was beside him. Marcus was between them in his chair, a cappuccino straw in his mouth, and a crayon in his hand, drawing on the placemat. "Okay," Maddie said. "I need to ask the question that everyone in this family is too polite to ask." "We're not polite," Leah said. "We're traumatized. Big difference." "Fair. But I'm asking anyway." Maddie looked at her father. "Dad, what are you waiting for?" Alex glanced at Leah. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You're a terrible liar. You've always been a terrible liar. Mom said you couldn't even lie about eating the last cookie. So I'll ask again, what are you waiting for?" Leah was looking at him now. So was Marcus. 3 sets of eyes. 3 people who had become his family, not through blood or obligation, but through choice and chance, and a midnight text that went to the wrong number. Alex reached into his pocket. His fingers found a small box. He'd been carrying it for 2 weeks, the same way he'd carried Henderson's photograph, the same way he'd carried the letter close to his body, waiting for the moment. "I was waiting for this," he said. He opened the box. Leah looked down at it. A ring. Simple. Not a diamond. She'd told him once that she thought diamonds were overrated, that the most beautiful things in the world were the ones nobody thought to look at. So he'd found an opal. Iridescent. Shifting colors depending on the light. Like a kitchen floor at midnight. Like a boy's laugh. Like a life that looked one way from the outside and was entirely different when you got close enough to see. "Leah Marie Johnson," Alex said. "I'm not going to give you a speech. You hate speeches. And I'm not going to promise you that everything will be perfect because you don't trust perfect. So here's what I'm going to promise instead. I promise to show up. Every morning, every evening, every bad day at therapy, and every good drawing, and every burned dinner, and every 14-pound bag, and every fight, and every laugh, and every single moment in between. I promise to stay." Leah's hands were shaking. She looked at the ring. At Alex. At Maddie, who was crying and not even trying to hide it. At Marcus, who had stopped drawing and was watching with his wide, knowing eyes. "You fixed my son's wheelchair with a butter knife," Leah said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It was a wrench, actually. It was a butter knife first. And that's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were the kind of man who tries with what he has, even when it's not enough, even when it's ridiculous. You try anyway." "Is that a yes?" She pulled the ring out of the box, slid it onto her own finger, didn't wait for him, didn't need him to do it, because Leah Johnson had been doing things for herself for 8 years, and she wasn't about to stop now. "It's a yes," she said. Maddie reached across the table and grabbed Leah's hand. "Welcome to the family. Fair warning, we're a mess. I've seen the broken window. I know." Marcus banged his tray. Both hands. The biggest sound he'd ever made. Everyone in Giuliani's turned to look. And what they saw was a boy in a wheelchair grinning with his whole body, surrounded by three people who were laughing and crying at the same time. The old man behind the espresso machine, Giuliani himself, 82 years old, who'd watched 1,000 stories unfold at his 6 tables, set down 4 cappuccinos without being asked. "On the house," he said. Alex looked at the man. "What's the occasion?" Giuliani shrugged. "You came in here 3 weeks ago looking like a ghost. Now you look like a man. That's worth a coffee." Alex picked up his cup. Leah picked up hers. Maddie raised hers. And Marcus, with a trembling, triumphant hand, picked up his straw, guided it to his cup, and drank. 4 people. 1 table. A Tuesday evening in October. Outside, the city roared. Taxis honked. Trains shook the ground. 10 million people rushed past the window, chasing something they couldn't name. Inside, a man who had thrown his ring through a window sat next to a woman who had sent a photo to the wrong number, across from a daughter who had refused to give up on her father, beside a boy who drew the world in crayon because his voice hadn't found its words yet. They were not perfect. They were not fixed. They were not the kind of family that fits neatly into a picture frame or a headline or a story with a clean ending. But they were real. And they were together. And that in a world that runs on noise and speed and the relentless machinery of ambition was the most beautiful thing any of them had ever seen. Alex reached into his pocket one last time, pulled out his phone, opened the photo Leah had sent that first night, the kitchen floor, the boy's laugh, the woman holding on. He looked at it. Then he looked at the life sitting around him. He typed a message to no one, saved it in his notes. 3 words he'd carry the rest of his life. Yes, it is.